Today I'm testing the RTX 5070 Ti at 1080p resolution to answer the question on whether or not this graphics card makes sense at this monitor resolution. So if you have or you want to buy this graphics card and you are deciding between a 1080p resolution monitor, a 1440p one or a 4K one, then you came to the right place. Now firstly, I want to say that the 5070 Ti is out of stock everywhere and scalpers are charging a horrible price. So if you want to get the 5070 Ti in stock at a decent price, I recommend you buying a pre-built PC. That's why I will leave the best pre-built gaming PCs down below in the video description with the 5070 Ti at different price points. You can find the latest pricing and availability in those links. Now let's test the 5070 Ti at 1080p resolution. My name is Valentino. That being said, let's start. With the first game, we have one of the most high demanding games out there in Cyberpunk 2077, and I was using the built-in benchmark for this one, and as you can see in the top left corner, the number of FPS was over 170 all the time, and at times it was hitting well over 190 FPS, which is insane considering this is one of the most high demanding games out there. And in the end, the FPS average was around 180, so very smooth experience in this game. And if you want to play Cyberpunk 2077 on ultra settings with high frame rates, sure, 1080p resolution might be the best option. And if you play this game at 1440p, you will be averaging around 120 FPS, which is about 40% slower compared to 1080p, so you are losing some serious performance if you go with 1440p. However, whether this is meaningful for you or not, it really depends on how many FPS you need. Honestly, for me, 120 FPS is a lot, considering this is not an esports shooter, and I would much rather play at 1080p ultra settings and get 120 rather than getting almost 200 FPS at 1080p resolution. Also, you can always turn on DLSS at 1440p, and it will look way better than 1080p anyway, and perform about the same. The next game is another one of the most high demanding titles. This is a recent one in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Now, at 1080p high settings, I was averaging around 150 FPS, which is very similar compared to 1440p resolution. At 1440p with the same exact settings, I was averaging over 140 FPS, so trust me, the difference between 150 or 140 in a game like this one is not going to be noticeable at all. So whether you play at 1080p or 1440p in this game doesn't really matter because the performance difference is not huge. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, one of the best looking games out there and also one of the most high demanding titles, I was averaging the same amount of FPS at 1440p and 1080p resolution. At 1080p, I was averaging over 70 FPS, and don't get me wrong, this is a very smooth experience, but you're just not able to utilize the GPU as much at 1080p resolution. As you can see in the top left corner, the GPU utilization is around 55 to 60%, so it's not that high, and that's why we are getting this amount of FPS. The 5070 Ti is definitely capable of achieving way higher frame rates than this, but again, at 1080p resolution, we are just not able to utilize it. By the way, I'm using the high-end settings, which look amazing, and at 1440p, the GPU was being utilized at around 75%, and that's why we got basically the same amount of FPS at 72 FPS on average at 1440p with these same settings. And then the same thing happened with Red Dead Redemption 2. This is one of my favorite games, really good looking game in terms of graphics, and at 1080p I was averaging the same amount as I was averaging at 1440p, because at 1080p I was utilizing about 70% of the graphics card, and at 1440p the graphics card was being utilized at over 90%. That being said, in both resolutions I was averaging around 127 FPS, which is a very playable experience, especially considering this is a graphically demanding game. But you already see the point here. The only big difference I've seen was in Cyberpunk 2077, where at 1080p you gain about 40% more performance, but even then, do you really mind going from 120 FPS to 180 in a game like Cyberpunk, where you can also turn on the DLSS and achieve basically the same performance at 1440p? And then for the rest of the games, I mean, since there's either no difference or just a very little difference, it makes no sense to get a 1080p monitor if you have a 5070 Ti, unless you want to play esports shooters where you need every frame rate. If you are planning on playing these high demanding titles, or you want to play some future games like GTA 6 and games of that nature, then I do believe that having a 1080p monitor is not going to make sense. In most games, there's not going to be a difference because you're just not utilizing enough of the 5070 Ti to have a meaningful difference. And trust me when I say the difference between 1080p and 1440p resolution is quite big. I really believe that 1440p looks much better than 1080p, and in my personal experience and opinion, I much rather have a 1440p monitor and achieve the same performance, or even if I have to turn on the DLSS quality, because it looks much better and the level of gaming performance is still amazing. I mean, you can even play at 4K with the 5070 Ti with no issues, so that's another option if you want even better visuals. So no, I would not recommend a 5070 Ti for 1080p resolution, again, unless you want to play esports shooters and you want to achieve the highest frame rates. By the way, right now getting a 5070 Ti is a bit complicated because it's out of stock everywhere, and if you can find it in stock, the prices are horrible because of these scalpers. So if you want to get a 5070 Ti that's in stock, I believe that getting a pre-built PC might be your best option, and that's why I will leave the best pre-built gaming PCs with the 5070 Ti down below in the video description with the latest pricing and availability in your region. You will also find my personal PC help in the top link in the description in case you want me to help you out finding the right system for you, whether it's a PC build or a pre-built PC. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.